Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, sometimes you see a group of words, they all start the same way, and your brain just kind of lumps them all together. They feel related, sure, but you also have this gut feeling that they're doing their jobs in totally different ways.
Right.
Well, our deep dive today is on one of the most fascinating and, let's be honest, frustrating prefixes in English, ab or abs.
It's a big one.
It is. We're talking about words like absolve, abstain, abstract, maybe even abstruse and abysmal. They all seem to signal some kind of distance or removal. But the mission here for us is to figure out the mechanism. How does one word signal a legal pardon, while another is about, a really complex idea, and another just means a deep hole?
That is the core linguistic puzzle, isn't it? The common thread is, as you said, that Latin prefix ab.
Okay.
At its heart, it just means from, away, or off. But that's just the start. The real personality of the word, what it actually does, that comes from the specific Latin root verb it's paired with. So we're going to frame this whole conversation around those root verbs, because they tell us how that separation happens. Is it by loosening, holding, pulling, or even pushing?
The how.
I like that. If you get the verb, you get the word. So, okay, let's unpack this, and let's start with the most dramatic kind of separation, which is release.
When we talk about release, I feel like the heaviest hitter in this ab family has to be absolve.
Oh, for sure.
It has this serious legal, moral, even religious weight to it.
It carries tremendous weight. Its core meaning is to set someone completely free from a formal obligation or, the consequences of their guilt.
Right, like when a jury absolves a defendant.
Exactly. Or, on the flip side, you might say that tough circumstances don't absolve a person of their ethical duties. And then, of course, historically, it's huge in a religious sense to pardon a sin.
So the key action here is removing guilt or responsibility. Where does that powerful sense of release come from? What's the root?
Well, that feeling of a burden being lifted, it's locked right into the etymology.
Okay.
Absolve comes from the Latin verb absolvere. You've got our prefix, away from, and then the root verb is solvere. And solvere means to loosen, to untie, or to set free.
So when you absolve someone, you are literally loosening the knot of guilt that was tying them down. That's a great visual. Precisely.
And that root, solvere, it's one of the most, I would argue it's one of the most productive verbs in all of Latin.
Really?
It gives us this whole family of words where the basic idea is loosening something or breaking it down. Think about it. When you solve a problem,
you loosen the knot of complexity.
Right. When a substance dissolves, its structure is loosened. When you try to resolve a conflict, you're trying to loosen the tensions.
That makes it so much more memorable. But if we can stick with the legal side for a second, people often seem to use absolve, exonerate, and acquit as if they're the same thing. Why does that distinction matter?
It matters a great deal because they describe really different kinds of clearance. Absolve, like we said, is mostly about release from the moral obligation or the consequences. It deals with conscience. Exonerated is much stronger.
How so?
It implies a complete clearance from an accusation, basically saying there was never any blame to begin with, you were falsely accused.
Got it.
And then there's acquit, which is, well, it's purely procedural. It's a formal court decision on a specific charge. You can be acquitted on a technicality, even if people are still suspicious.
So moral freedom, factual freedom, and procedural freedom.
That's a great way to put it. The mechanisms are totally distinct.
Fascinating. So that covers loosening. Let's pivot now to the mechanism of pulling, which brings us to the word abstract.
Abstract. It's a perfect example of how this prefix operates in the world of ideas. You can use it as an adjective, like an abstract concept, or a noun, an article abstract, or a verb to abstract data.
And the core idea is always the same.
The core idea is always pulling away.
And what's the pulling root?
That would be the Latin verb trahere, which means to pull or to draw. So abstract comes from abstrahere, which literally meant to drag away.
We always contrast abstract with concrete. This explains that perfectly, doesn't it?
It really does.
If something is concrete, it's tied to the physical world, it's right there. But if it's abstract, it's an idea that has been pulled away from that reality.
Absolutely. Think of a sculptor. They're trying to find the essential form inside a block of stone. They chip away the extra material, they abstract the form from the concrete mass.
Right.
Or in math, you abstract the idea of three chairs or 3 pencils. You pull the idea away from the specific object. And this is where you get this really lovely linguistic mirror effect between abstract and extract.
Oh, interesting. They both have that pulling root.
They both share trahere, to pull, but abstract uses ab, away from, while extract uses X out of.
So when I write an abstract of a research paper, the noun, I'm pulling the main points away from the full text, but at the same time, I'm also extracting that key information out of the paper.
Exactly. You're doing the same job, but describing the direction of movement from a slightly different perspective.
One emphasizes removal from the source, and the other emphasizes pulling out of the source.
You've got it. It's a subtle but powerful difference.
Okay, that wraps up release and removal. Let's shift now to internal control. We're moving from something done to a person to something a person chooses to do to themselves, which brings us to abstain.
Abstain is all about internal discipline. It's choosing not to do something, usually with some self-denial. You might abstain from coffee or abstain from voting. It's a voluntary holding back.
So if absolve was loosening and abstract was pulling, what's the mechanism of separation here?
The mechanism is literally holding.
Holding.
Abstain comes from Latin abstinor. That combines our prefix ab, away from, with the verb tenere, which means to hold. So the core idea is holding oneself back or holding away from something.
And tenere, that sounds like another one of those really foundational Latin roots. I feel like I see it everywhere.
It is. It's the basis for dozens of English words. Just think about all the ways we use the concept of holding. You contain something.
You hold it together.
You detain a suspect.
You hold them back.
You maintain a position. You sustain an effort. It's all about holding on to something.
It's a huge family of words. And we should probably mention the noun form, abstinence.
Yes, abstinence, the practice of self-denial. And here's a fun little bit of trivia for you.
Oh.
The noun abstinence actually shows up in English about a century before the verb abstain does.
No way. So people were talking about the practice of holding back before they had a specific verb for the action of doing it.
It seems so. The concept came first.
That's fascinating. Now, staying with self-restraint, there's a very similar sounding word that's much more specific, abstemious.
Ah, abstemious.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful word, but it does trip people up. It's not interchangeable with abstain.
Right, its definition is much narrower. It means being restrained specifically with, what, eating and drinking?
Exactly. Especially with alcohol. If you describe someone as an abstemious drinker, you mean they are very careful and sparing.
So what's the tiny etymological difference that pins it down to just food and drink?
This is a great nuance check. It starts with abs, away from, but the root is not tenar, to hold. Abstemious comes from a totally different Latin root, tolone, which we find in the Latin word tomotum.
And tomotum means?
It means intoxicating beverage.
Wait, really? So the word abstemious literally means something like away from the booze?
Essentially, yes. And it shows you just how specific Latin could be. For a general word for holding back, they use tenar. But for words specifically about holding back from food and drink, they use the tone root. It makes abstemious so much more descriptive for habits at the dinner table.
Okay, let's move on to another mechanism of separation, pushing. This one explains why some ideas feel so hard to understand, because they've been conceptually pushed away. Let's talk about abstruse.
Abstruse is a word for profound difficulty. We use it for things like abstruse economic theories or, quantum physics.
Things that are just hard to comprehend. The word itself feels heavy. What's the pushing root?
That would be the Latin verb truders, which means to push or thrust. Abstruse comes from abstrusis, which is the past participle of abstruder. And abstruder meant literally to push away and hide, to conceal.
So an abstruse theory isn't necessarily dense because someone wanted to hide it.
No, not at all.
It's more that the sheer weight of the concept has pushed the understanding of it out of easy reach for most people.
Exactly. It's a brilliant metaphor. When you encounter something abstruse, it's like trying to see through a dense fog. The knowledge is in there, but it's been pushed back, hidden by layers of complexity. And that pushing root, truder, gives us a whole family of words. To extrude is to push out. To intrude is to push in. To protrude is to push forward.
That makes the distinction crystal clear. Abstract ideas are pulled away for clarity, but abstruse ideas are pushed away by their own density. Now let's go from a conceptual push to a very physical one. Abut. If a property abuts a park, what's happening there?
That's all about proximity. To abut something is to border it, to touch along an edge. It's an end-to-end push. And this word is interesting. Its history is a bit different. It comes from Anglo-French abuter. That A at the beginning isn't from ab. It's actually from the Latin ad, which means to or toward, and it's combined with bout or but meaning end or extremity.
So while all these other words mean away from, abut is about pushing toward a limit.
Precisely. It's a physical, structural word. Think of the abutments of a bridge, the structures that literally push up against the land to hold the bridge up.
A very solid word. Okay, now let's tackle true bottomless distance. Abyss and its adjective, abysmal.
The abyss is maybe the purest separation we've discussed. An immeasurably deep gulf. Figuratively, we use it for, an abyss of despair.
And this one's not Latin, is it?
Correct. This one's Greek. Abyss comes from abyssos, and it's a very literal word. It combines the negative prefix meaning without, and byssos, which means depth of the sea.
So literally without a bottom.
Without a bottom.
That is so powerful, and it makes the modern common use of abysmal, as in the service at that restaurant was abysmal, all the more interesting. How did bottomless come to mean extremely bad?
It's a great example of linguistic drift. Originally, abysmal just meant immensely deep, like an abysmal canyon. But by the 19th century, it was being used so often for things like abysmal ignorance or abysmal poverty, things that had figuratively sunk to the lowest possible depths.
That the secondary meaning just took over.
It took over completely. So now when you say a team's performance was abysmal, you're unconsciously saying their quality has fallen into a bottomless pit of failure.
The journey from a hole in the ground to terrible customer service, that's a huge leap.
It is.
Okay, finally, we have to talk about the outlier in the group. We've had release, restraint, pulling, pushing, but abusive feels like a totally different kind of negative separation.
It does. Abusive is all about the wrong or improper use of something, whether it's language, power, or finances. Now, it starts with ab, but here the prefix isn't really about away from in that same physical sense. It comes from the Latin abuti, which meant to misuse.
So the ab is acting more like a sign of deviation.
Exactly. A usage that is away from the correct or proper use. It signals a wrongful or excessive action.
Which makes it a fantastic contrast. Absolve is the healthy loosening of a bond, while abusive is the corrupted misuse of a connection.
It separates the action from its proper intent.
So after all that, what does this all mean? We started with this confusing jumble of ab words that all look the same, and now it feels like we have a map. The key to that map isn't the prefix, it's the verb that comes after it.
That's the perfect synthesis. We saw that separation is achieved in these radically different ways. Absolve creates distance by loosening.
From solver.
Abstain creates distance through self-imposed holding.
Pair.
And abstract creates distance through intellectual pulling. And then we saw that something becomes abstruse by being pushed away by its own complexity. The journey from the dictionary to the root gives you this unshakable feel for how the word actually functions.
It totally changes how you read. You stop seeing words that just sound alike and you start seeing the machinery at work behind them.
And this brings up a final question, something for you to think about this week. Now that we understand the difference, that abstract ideas are just generalized.
Told away for clarity.
Right. And abstruse ideas are concealed.
Pushed away by complexity.
How can you better differentiate between information that is just abstract and maybe requires a bit more focus, and information that is truly abstruse and might require you to learn something new before you can even start? What are you choosing to pull away, and what is pushing you away?